Hey, my friends, it's Matt. This is a 10-minute Bible Hour podcast, and I've got a personal question for you today that I will not be able to hear the answer to because of the one-way nature of the medium. But still, I want to ask it because I think it's an interesting thought exercise, if nothing else. What is the most consequential conversation you ever had in your whole life? I thought about this a little bit before I turned on the mic, and I know it's going to seem cliche, but for me, it's got to be asking Camilla to marry me, right? I'm not trying to be cocky or anything, but I knew the answer before I asked because, I mean, we're just at that point in the relationship. I wouldn't have asked if I wasn't pretty dang sure she was going to say yes. But still, I was nervous, and I guess a little bit, even as a young man, I could kind of imagine the implications of her saying yes and what we were about to become together. Looking back on it from this vantage point right now, wow, it's far and away the most consequential decision or conversation of my life because my kids and our future and where we've lived and what we've done, all of that stuff. None of it happens the same way without her. And none of the awesome stuff she's accomplished and done happens without the kids and the family. I mean, we all prop each other up and encourage each other and have shared life together. It's a huge deal. It's the human watershed moment of my life. And I bet for most of you who are married is probably, you're probably coming up with the same thing, right? It's whenever that question got asked. But I bet there are a few of you whose brains go to a completely different set of circumstances. And for some of you, you picture an opportunity that you seized. Maybe not a relational opportunity, but business, adventure, I don't know, something fate deciding. I bet some of you picture a crisis, a calamity, something that was brewing and boiling, and you were the one who was positioned to do something about it, and you had to muster your courage and go and confront it, like Queen Esther is having to do in the book that we're looking at here in our conversations. I think that's probably the rarest answer to the question of what was the most consequential conversation in the history of your life. I think the fewest people would say, well, there was a gigantic crisis and I was there, and so I tried to think of the right words and maybe I said them. I don't know, but it worked out and it had big consequences. Maybe there's some of you who would say I tried real hard to make a thing better, but it didn't work out and I carry that weight with me. Either way, that's probably the most consequential conversation of your life. Well, here in the beginning of Esther chapter 7, the most consequential conversation of Haman's life happens. The most consequential conversation of Esther's life happens. And in a way, maybe the most consequential conversation of just about any Jew who was alive at this point in history ever is about to happen. And it's just a few words. I mean, if you're descended from the Jewish people of the time of Persia, then I suppose maybe this is one of the most consequential conversations that ever happened in the history of ever as it pertains to you, because if this goes wrong, then I guess you wouldn't exist. There's a lot at stake here, and it's going to get sorted out over a fancy dinner party. Esther 7, verse 1, tensions high. Everybody's in a different place than they were just 24 hours earlier when they were at Esther's previous banquet, and here's what happens. So the king and Haman went to dine with Queen Esther, and as they were drinking wine on that second day, the king again asked, Queen Esther, what's your petition? It'll be given to you. What's your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it'll be granted. So this is great news. The king is still in warm spirits. If anything, he's maybe in a bit warmer spirits. And remember, something has changed in his life. He has been reminded that Mordecai, a Jew, saved his life and that he is in debt to Mordecai the Jew. Maybe he feels that he's in the process of settling that up because of the whole parade thing. Here's how the conversation continues, Esther 7:3. Then Queen Esther answered, If I have found favor with you, O king, and if it pleases your majesty, grant me my life. This is my petition. Wait, what? If you're the king, remember, you assume that Esther is either Persian or from any nondescript member people group of your empire, from some corner of your massive kingdom. I don't know. I don't even really need to look that up. I don't know who she would have held herself out as being descended from. Probably not the Medes when they got married, because he would have looked into that. There'd be some family stuff with the Medes coming from Astyages and Cyrus that could make things weird. She probably didn't claim to be Greek because, one, she couldn't pull it off linguistically, and two, that might be weird and still a sore subject. I don't know. I assume that she lied and said that she was some other specific ethnicity that isn't Jewish, and she was able to pass. She was able to convince him of that, or he just didn't care and really didn't bother with it any further. But what we know for sure is that he has not associated the Jews, and Mordecai the Jew, and this edict that was carelessly issued in his name by Haman, he hasn't associated that people group with her at all. That's got to be one of the farthest things from his imagination. So when his queen phrases it like this, I'm sure he's just baffled. If I found favor with you, well, obviously you've found favor with me. O king, and if it pleases your majesty, grant me, okay, I already told you, I'm going to grant you whatever, my life. This is my petition. Well, who's trying to kill you? Nobody would dare raise their hand against the queen. I certainly am not trying to kill you. I mean, clearly we're having a nice dinner. We had a nice dinner yesterday. I extended my scepter to you when you came into the royal courtroom. I mean, everybody saw that. I affirm you. I accept you. I mean, for crying out loud, I had a wife once and I ran her off and it made me really sad. And hey, come here. I'm not going to make that mistake again. Who's trying to kill you? What the heck is going on? I'm guessing it was some kind of mix of anger and also, are you mistaken? But props to Queen Esther for taking the time that she had in between all of this to think through exactly how she was going to say it, to hit him with this shocking reversal. She doesn't want money. She doesn't want prestige. She just wants to not die. She wants to not be killed. She goes on, and spare my people. This is my request. Well, your people, at this point, the king's like, do we have any people that are slated to be killed? And maybe in the back of his mind, he's like, well, I do seem to recall one conversation. I was busy that day. Who was it who said they were going to maybe kill a people group on my behalf? But he probably doesn't have time yet to sort it all through and make all the connections because she's still giving her petition. She goes on. For I and my people have been sold for destruction and slaughter and annihilation. See the way she uses the triplicate of what is to happen there? In the same way that Haman's edict back in Esther 3 uses that triplicate of just how dead the Jews are to be. Dispatches were sent by the couriers to all the king's provinces with the order to destroy, kill, and annihilate all the Jews, young and old, women and little children, on a single day, the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar, and to plunder their goods. That's what the edict says, and Esther is just repeating that verbiage in the same style. So she says, for I and my people have been sold for destruction and slaughter and annihilation. If we had merely been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept quiet, because no such distress would justify disturbing the king. What an amazing touch of humility at the end, and very shrewd, because it's a counterfactual. That isn't the case. The king hasn't issued any such order that the Jews are to be enslaved, and she can appear very noble and submissive by being, look, if you want to enslave all of us, you're so busy, it wouldn't even really be right for me to bug you or interrupt your workday to even mention that or point it out. But total annihilation, being killed and slaughtered, and me getting swept up in that, your queen, the implication is like that. I just had to take the risk of interrupting you and burdening you with that, oh great king. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but at this point, it looks like Xerxes still hasn't pieced together what ethnic group Esther is announcing that she's a part of here, because Xerxes' question is as follows. King Xerxes asked Queen Esther, who is he? Where is the man who has dared to do such a thing? Now, if Xerxes, right, remembered that there was an edict to kill all the people and that it was for the Jews, he would have been like, oh, that's right, that was Haman. He offered me like $250 million to do it. He was all bent out of shape and super excited about it. I was like, whatever, just let me have my Thursday. Fine. Eradicate a whole people group. That's right, it was that guy. But he doesn't even seem to remember. So does this mean that Xerxes maybe had a few people groups who were slated for complete annihilation this year, and he didn't know and wasn't sure which one? Is it that he really wanted to pass this off and save face? He seems like a face saver and the kind of guy who would be interested in that. Is it that he wants to make his wife happy and have her be mad at somebody else and not him? He seems like the kind of guy who is very concerned with what his wife thinks about him and is very afraid that she will not be happy, and even worse, publicly not happy. He's been down that road before. He doesn't want to feel that again. Maybe he knows dang well what the answer is, but he's playing it cool to make sure he doesn't make some big brash commitment to something without knowing exactly what they're talking about. That doesn't sound as much like Xerxes in the book of Esther to me, but maybe. But whichever way we're going here, how he responds is very straightforward. He gives the distinct impression that we are not going to be killing your people group. Now, who is it who came up with this cockamamie idea? And I am going to put him in his place and get this matter straightened out immediately. I mean, right? That sounds like that's what he's saying. It sounds like this is a done deal, and this consequential conversation has worked. The king has been maneuvered and manipulated into a corner with exceptional artistry, and now he's, with just one sentence, immediately committed himself to a positive outcome for the Jewish people, but a very negative outcome for Haman. Esther 7, verse 6. Esther answered him, "The adversary and enemy is this vile Haman." And with those words, that guy's very bad day just got much, much worse. What a wildly consequential conversation this proved to be. Surely if you went and asked Queen Esther on her deathbed years after these events the same question I asked you at the beginning of the conversation, she would go right to this one. It's just a few words, it's just a brief exchange, but she demonstrates such understanding of her husband and the situation and the cultural moment and the behavior of her adversary that with just a couple of perfectly woven sentences and a couple of perfectly executed actions over the previous 24 hours, she absolutely comes through. What an amazing development arc for this young woman, going from an orphan and an outsider to everything to a queen in the palace, and not just somebody who's content to rest on those laurels, but a queen who in the moment of her people's need went to bat for them, not just in a token way so as to be like, look, I tried, I did something, but in a way that demonstrated maximum shrewdness for maximum effectiveness. And at least with where we're leaving off right now, it looks like this is ticketed toward a very good result. Later today or tomorrow, I am going to start distributing that cool map of this era of Persia to everybody who's currently supporting at any level in any way. Thank you so much to everybody who does that. Thank you so much to everybody who does not. I'm so grateful that everybody is here, and I'm really excited to share that map with you because I think it's super neat. All right, that's it for now. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour Podcast. Let's do this again soon.
Thank you to all of you who have taken the time to leave a rating and review on your podcast apps. We're grateful because it's encouraging and it helps new people find their way here.